Hi there, I'm Matt Keene. Welcome to Creating a Future We Want, the Ethics series. So, I'm reading a paper by Hayek about the denationalization of currency. I think that's what it's called, 1975 or so. And, okay, pretty heavy duty. Learning a lot about inefficiencies caused by inflation and where it came from, why basically governments, sovereigns took on this responsibility and authority to be in charge of money. And I recently had somebody explaining to me some of the reasons for this long-term low inflation. Let's say 2 to 4% is low. Chronic inflation, maybe that's a word, or chronic tax. And one of the reasons given was along the lines of decreasing the value of the money in a predictable, relatively certain way to create incentives for consumption, to buy, basically, for consumers to purchase, as if the money's going to be worth less in the future. You want to spend it sooner rather than later. So that set of incentives put in play, and I think as Charlie Munger says, the little quote, like I hear it repeated often in podcasts and such, show me the incentive and I'll show you the outcome. So, some of my values are sustainability of nature, to commit humbly and compassionately to sustainability and equity. Now, we're on a planet, and on this planet, it's relatively finite. There's input of energy, some other things, and we're releasing some things, but relatively closed system in a lot of ways for intents and purposes that we're talking about. But we've built a global economic model based on a notion of infinite growth, infinite accumulation of wealth, creation of wealth. So, it's just this one more little piece to the puzzle that I'm just kind of putting together, and honestly, I just need people to correct me if I'm wrong about things. Give me additional dimensions and facets to look at it, or dimensions to think about it. But if we have this economic model that's a poor fit for the planet on which we live in the long term, it does seem like this notion of chronic or low levels of inflation over a very long period, incentivizing the immediacy of consumption, is not ideal. Now, I'm not one to say that infinite growth is bad or impossible. But I say that knowing, and some of the other praxis on creating a future we want are about this, that there's massive amounts of information, critical information, missing from the system, from the economic system, and the things that we count and understand to be resources, which we call scarce. First, the pool of resources, I believe, is only partial, and that some of the resources that we are not considering are potentially infinite. So with that, I am also considering this notion of inflation and how access to a stable currency is perhaps critical. The notion that a currency increases in value or is stable in value over the long term, incentivizing saving or the putting off of consumption may be a helpful bridge toward, dealing with things like, climate change. People say, oh, not an existential crisis. Well, maybe not for you. It just depends the scale you're talking about. One person or civilization. Um, I, I think that it's existential for the identity of humanity, and part of that reason is we haven't ourselves dug into the notion of what our identity is. We have not explored that thoroughly, nor discovered it, or communicated about it very well. More on all that to come. I'm Matt Keene. Thanks for visiting Creating a Future We Want, the Ethics series. What is your vision for your relationship with growth?